I was kicked out of my own house in a snowstorm. My wife and family were laughing from the window. "You will freeze to death, you worthless bastard." I didn't say anything. I just turned around and walked away. 3 days later, my inbox was flooded with 47 hysterical letters of apology. You ever have one of those moments where everything just clicks, and not in a good way? Like something inside you breaks? Or maybe wakes up, and you finally realize your entire relationship has been a lie? For me, it wasn't a lipstick stain or a flirty text that tipped me off. It was the sight of my wife, Morgan, 30F, high-fiving her younger brother through the frosted glass of our living room window while I stood outside in a blizzard, locked out of my own house. I'm Julian, 34. Morgan and I had been married for just over 5 years. The first couple of them? Not bad. Not perfect, sure, but we had our rhythm. I worked full-time as a tech support specialist. She worked from home as a freelance designer. We were never rolling in cash, but we got by. We were solid. Things started going sideways about a year and a half ago, when her parents' lease ended and they asked to stay, just for a few weeks, while they figured things out. I agreed. I mean, what was I supposed to say? No? Those few weeks turned into months. Her mom took over the kitchen like it was her own. I'd wake up and find everything in new places. Spices, utensils, cookware. Her dad started dropping comments about our spending habits, telling me how to manage money like an adult. They didn't pay rent. They didn't even offer. Then, about 3 months ago, Morgan's brother Nate, 28M, lost his roommate situation and, surprise, moved into the last free bedroom. Our quiet 3-bedroom house suddenly had 5 adults crammed into it, and somehow I was the outsider in my own home. I brought it up with Morgan multiple times. Each conversation ended the same way. Tears, accusations that I hated her family, the old, "but they're my parents" line on repeat. Eventually, I just gave up. I started spending more time in the garage or picking up extra shifts just to avoid being home. Not my proudest coping mechanism, but at least it kept me sane. Then came last Thursday, the night everything snapped. We were hit with one of the worst blizzards our city's seen in years. The kind where the news tells you to stay home unless you want to end up in a ditch. Or worse. I had picked up a late shift at the call center, partly for the overtime, mostly to skip Morgan's weekly family night, which always made me feel like an intruder at my own dinner table. I clocked out at 11 p.m. The roads were a nightmare. What should have been a 20-minute drive took nearly an hour. Snow was coming down in sheets. I pulled into our driveway completely exhausted, trudged through knee-deep snow to the front door, and pulled out my keys. They didn't work. At first, I figured it was the cold. I jiggled the key again. Nothing. I pulled out my phone and checked right house, right key. I knocked, waited, knocked louder. Finally, I saw a light flick on and a shadow move behind the frosted glass of the window beside the door. Relief washed over me, until I saw it was Morgan's face. And she wasn't worried. She was smirking. I waved to her, motioning to unlock the door. She just stared, then shook her head. Confused, I called her. She picked up, didn't say anything. "Hey, the door's locked. My key's not working. Can you open up? It's freezing." "Yeah, about that," she said, sounding weirdly casual. "We changed the locks today." "You what? Without telling me? Why?" Nate thought it'd be funny. I stood there, stunned, waiting for her to laugh and say she was kidding. She didn't. "Morgan, it's literally -15 degrees. Open the door." That's when Nate showed up behind her, holding a beer, looking like he was watching his favorite sitcom. "Sorry, man," he said, loud enough through the glass. "No outsiders tonight. Family meeting." I stared at Morgan, hoping she'd say something, anything, to shut him up, to stand up for me. Instead, she laughed. Her parents appeared in the background, both grinning. Her dad raised his wine glass in a mock toast. "Morgan," I said, my voice shaking from a mix of cold and something deeper. "This isn't funny. Let me in. Maybe go stay with one of your buddies tonight," she said, like she was suggesting I pick up milk from the store. "We just need to talk things over. As a family. I am your family. I'm your husband. This is my house too." Nate leaned close to the glass, his breath fogging it slightly. He grinned and muttered just loud enough for me to hear. "Freeze to death, useless idiot." Morgan didn't flinch, didn't look ashamed. She actually nodded and high-fived him. That was it. I didn't scream, didn't bang on the door. I just stood there for another 30 seconds, my phone battery circling 2%, my car's gas tank nearly empty, snow whipping around me like knives, and something inside me shifted. I turned, walked back through the snow to my car, drove away. The roads were nearly impassable. My phone died before I could call anyone. I found a 24-hour diner still open, fluorescent lights glowing like a lifeline. I ordered a coffee, took the corner booth, and just sat there, watching the snow fall, watching my life fall apart. That night at the diner felt like I was floating through someone else's life. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even cold anymore. I was just blank. I sat in that booth for hours, drinking cup after cup of lukewarm coffee. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Joe, didn't charge me for refills. I think she could tell something was wrong. Maybe she'd seen that look before. She didn't ask questions, just kept my cup full. For that I was silently grateful. My phone had died around 1 a.m. and honestly, I was glad. I didn't want to read whatever Morgan or her family had to say. I wasn't ready for more gaslighting, more guilt trips, more fake concern. I needed quiet. And that diner gave me just that. Around 7 a.m. I borrowed the diner's landline and called the one person I could trust, my old friend Marcus. We hadn't hung out much lately, not since Morgan's family moved in and subtly made it clear they didn't like him. He once called them out for dominating every conversation at my birthday dinner. They never forgave him. When he picked up and I told him I needed a place to crash, he didn't hesitate. "Come over. Doors unlocked. I'll make pancakes." I nearly cried right there in the booth. Marcus lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm and quiet, and most importantly, it was his. No one else stomping around, opening his mail, telling him how to load the dishwasher. When I walked in, he didn't ask a single question. Just handed me a blanket and a spare shirt and pointed toward the couch. "Bathroom's down the hall. Shower's yours whenever." He made good on the pancakes too. Extra syrup, just how I used to like them. That first day I slept. Like really slept, the kind of deep, twitchy, blackout sleep your body forces on you when your brain just can't take anymore. When I finally woke up, it was dark again. The second day, things shifted. I got a new phone. New number. Paid cash. I kept the old one turned off in my bag, just in case I needed it later, but I didn't want to see it lighting up. I wasn't ready for Morgan's apologies or manipulations. I needed space to think. And I needed to protect myself. Step 1. Check the bank. When I logged into our joint account, I felt sick. There was $372 left. 2 months ago, we had over $8,000 in there. Rent, savings, our emergency buffer. All gone. I dug into the transaction history. Dozens of transfers, small enough to not trigger alerts, but consistent. Every few days, $300 here, $500 there, quietly draining the account into a checking number I didn't recognize. Morgan. I stared at the screen, trying to feel something. Anger, betrayal, sadness. But all I felt was this hollow numbness. I just nodded to myself, stood up and left. Step 2. Visit the bank. We had a safety deposit box there. I'd put a few important documents inside a year ago, title to my car, my birth certificate, our marriage license. Thank God I had. Because if I'd left that stuff at home, it'd probably be accidentally missing by now. Everything was still there. Untouched. I packed it into my bag and walked out. Step 3. Talk to work. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted to make sure Morgan or her family couldn't show up and make trouble. My manager, Chris, was surprisingly supportive. Turns out his own sister had gone through something similar with an ex who weaponized HR complaints. He let me update my emergency contact, put a note on my file about not accepting calls or visits from Morgan or anyone tied to her. He even offered to have the front desk screen visitors. That night, I finally cracked open the old phone and turned it on. 47 messages. Texts, missed calls, DMs on every platform. The first ones from Thursday night were angry. "Julian, stop being dramatic. This isn't a big deal. Come home. You're seriously overreacting. Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous. Nate says he was just messing around." By Friday morning, the tone had shifted. "Where are you? Please just text back. Let us know you're okay. I called Marcus but he said he hasn't heard from you. Please, Julian. Work said you called in. At least we know you're alive. By Saturday, it was pure panic. Julian, this isn't funny anymore. We're seriously worried. We filed a missing person report but the cops won't help because you called work. Your sister messaged me asking what happened. Did you tell her something? That one made me smirk. Because no, I hadn't told my sister anything. But Amber always had a sixth sense for BS, especially when it came to Morgan. The last message came in Sunday afternoon. Please. I'll do anything. Just come home. That was the moment I knew I had all the power now. And I wasn't going to waste it. I replied with one line. Meet me at the Uptown Cafe. Monday at noon. Come alone. I hit send and turned the phone back off. Marcus looked up from his laptop and raised an eyebrow. That the calm before the storm text? Something like that, I said. I didn't know what would happen at that meeting, but I knew what I wanted. Not revenge. Not a dramatic confrontation. Just the truth and a way out that I could live with. Because whatever version of me had stood out in the snow, shivering and begging to be let in, he was gone. Monday hit colder than I expected. But this time the chill didn't bother me. I sat in the corner booth at Uptown Cafe, nursing a black coffee and watching the front door. I'd arrived early on purpose. I wanted to be calm, collected, the opposite of what they expected from me. At exactly 12:01, Morgan walked in. And she wasn't alone. Trailing behind her like a sad parade were her parents and Nate. All of them wide-eyed, awkward, trying to look concerned. Morgan spotted me and immediately rushed forward, eyes already watery. I'm sorry, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I didn't want to come with them, but I was scared. I held up a hand. We agreed you'd come alone. Before she could say anything else, her mom inserted herself into the booth beside Morgan like it was her right. We're just worried about you, she said. We thought it was best to. Then you should have stayed home, I said calmly. This isn't a family therapy session. Her dad pulled over a chair, sat down. Nate stayed standing, arms crossed, clearly annoyed to be awake before noon. I looked at each of them slowly, then opened the folder I'd brought with me and laid a stack of bank statements on the table. Where's the money? Morgan blinked. What? $7,800. From our joint account. You've been pulling it out for months, small enough chunks to fly under the radar. Where did it go? She swallowed hard and looked away. Her dad leaned in. That's really not something to discuss in public. Too late, I said, tapping the paper. I want an answer. Right now. Morgan looked like she was about to cry again, but something in my face must have told her it wouldn't work this time. She finally said it. My parents had some financial problems. An investment thing. I didn't know how to tell you. They were panicking and I thought I could help without bothering you. You didn't think draining our emergency savings was worth mentioning? She tried to reach across the table. I moved my hand. Her mom jumped in. We moved in to help you too, you know. We've offered our time, our knowledge. Knowledge. I laughed once, dry and sharp. Gerald, you called me 3 times last month because you couldn't figure out how to log into Netflix. That one hit him harder than I expected. I reached into the folder again and pulled out a folded paper. 3 simple lines typed in bold. 1. Return all funds, $7,800, within 48 hours. 2. You and your family move out of my house within 1 week. 3. Morgan and I attend couples therapy if she wants to even consider saving this marriage. I slid it across the table to her. Morgan's mom let out a humorless chuckle. We're not going anywhere. That house is as much ours now as yours. I smiled. That's when I pulled out my phone and placed it face up on the table. Want to know what else I have? A video. From Thursday night. Her dad scoffed. Of what? I opened the gallery and hit play. The video wasn't long. Just under a minute, recorded through the glass just before my battery died. But the sound was crisp. Nate's voice. Crystal clear. Freeze to death, useless idiot. Then Morgan's laughter. I didn't say a word. I just let them watch. Morgan turned pale. Nate looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Her mom's face twisted, trying to find some way to spin it. Think about what I could do with this, I said low and even. Your coworkers, your extended family, your church group. Morgan's job. Her dad stood up, red-faced. You're blackmailing us. Nope, I said. I'm protecting myself. You endangered my life during a state-declared emergency. That's not a joke. And I already spoke with a lawyer. That was a lie. But they didn't know that. The table went dead silent. I looked at Morgan. You have until Wednesday night. After that, I go public. Then I stood up, collected my papers, and left without another word. The next morning, I checked the bank account. $7,800 had been deposited overnight. Then I got a text from Morgan. We'll be out by Friday. Can we talk? Just you and me. I didn't respond. Instead, I called in a favor. Morgan's Aunt Clara, the so-called black sheep of the family, had reached out to me years ago, back when Morgan and I got engaged. We only met once, briefly at the wedding, before her parents started subtly pushing her out of our lives. I remembered her as kind, funny, and brutally honest. I found her on Facebook and sent a message explaining everything. It took less than 5 minutes for her to reply, I'm not surprised. You're not the first one they've done this to. Call me. I'll tell you everything. We spoke for nearly 2 hours that night. Turns out, her story was eerily similar to mine, only she hadn't stuck around long enough for things to escalate. You should have heard the things they said about you at Thanksgiving, she told me. The minute you got that promotion last year, they started treating you like an ATM. I asked her, why didn't you warn me sooner? She hesitated. Because I didn't think you'd believe me. No one ever does until they get burned. By the time I hung up, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them rewrite this story to make me the villain. The next step? Take back my house. My life. My peace. And if that meant lighting a few bridges on fire to stay warm, so be it. I came back to the house that Friday with Marcus by my side. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I wasn't going to walk into that place alone. Not after everything. To my surprise, they were gone. Actually gone. A full day early. Which instantly made me suspicious. Morgan's family had never done anything ahead of schedule in the 5 years I'd known them. If a deadline was Monday at noon, they'd be dragging boxes to the curb at 12:04, asking for just one more hour. We walked through the front door and immediately something felt off. The furniture was rearranged. Not trashed, no broken plates or spray-painted insults, but it was petty. My favorite recliner had been shoved into the corner like a punishment. The couch was against the wrong wall, the TV tilted at a weird angle. All the wedding photos were gone from the hallway wall. But strangely, the rest of the family pictures, baby photos, birthdays, vacations were still there. My PlayStation was still in the living room, but every save file had been wiped. The fridge? Completely empty. Not even a bottle of mustard left. It was like they vacuumed the place of anything remotely edible out of spite. And the lights, every single bulb had been replaced with those cheap, blinding white ones I hated. The soft warm tones I'd picked out were all gone. Marcus just let out a low whistle. They really went out of their way to be aggressively passive-aggressive. I found a folded letter on the kitchen counter right under the magnet that used to hold up our grocery list. It wasn't an apology or a farewell. It was an invoice. Morgan had itemized her share of household expenses over the last 5 years, everything from groceries to Wi-Fi bills, and ended it with, since I repaid the $7,800, I believe this settles our debts. I actually laughed. First real laugh I'd had in weeks. I snapped a picture of it and posted it to my Instagram story with a caption. Divorce receipts are getting wild this year. The replies were pure chaos. That night I texted Morgan and asked to meet one last time. Neutral ground. Public place. No family circus. She agreed to meet at the park near downtown. Saturday afternoon. Bright, open, safe. When I got there, she was already on the bench. And she looked smaller. Not physically. Just deflated. Her usual polished look was gone. She had no makeup on. She looked like someone who just realized the world doesn't always bend the way she wants. I sat down. She started crying before I even said anything. And you know what? I didn't feel the usual rush of guilt. I didn't reach for a tissue or try to comfort her. I just waited. I messed up, she said. I know I did. I nodded but said nothing. They've always been like that, she continued. controlling, guilt-tripping. I just never pushed back. And then you became the easy target. She told me everything. How her parents had lost money in some sketchy crypto scheme. How Nate convinced her that locking me out was a loyalty test to see where I stood in the family hierarchy, his exact words. She claimed she never meant to keep me outside all night, that it got out of hand, and by the time she tried to speak up I was already gone. Was any of it real? I finally asked. Us? Or was I just the safest option? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. It was real. But yes, part of why I chose you was because I knew you'd never say no to me. You were easy to lean on. That hurt more than the lockout. I want a divorce, I said simply. She didn't argue. Just asked, is there anything I can do to change your mind? No. And that was that. But there was still one thing left to do, and for that I needed Clara. She helped me organize it, a surprise appearance at the family's monthly dinner. It was held at Morgan's grandparents' house, a tradition I'd been intentionally excluded from since her parents moved in. Clara walked in with me. The moment we entered, conversation stopped. Her mom actually dropped her fork. Her dad turned red. Nate looked like he was halfway out of his chair. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't make a scene. I just calmly laid everything out. The lockout. The drained bank account. The manipulation. The video. Then Clara spoke. She told them how the same thing happened to her. How she was pushed out when she refused to hand over her savings. How they tried to isolate her too. And then something incredible happened. Other family members started chiming in. Cousins, uncles, even Morgan's grandma. One by one, stories came pouring out, all different, all the same. Everyone had felt it. Everyone had been used, then discarded by the same two people now sitting in stunned silence at the end of the table. And finally, Morgan spoke up. I lost my husband because of you, she told her parents, shaking. I let you ruin everything. But I'm done. She pulled out her phone and blocked them both on the spot. When her dad tried to say something, she stood up and walked out. I left shortly after. No drama. No speeches. Just closure. It's been a few weeks now. The divorce papers are signed. Morgan didn't contest anything. I've repainted the living room, rearranged the furniture, replaced the light bulbs. Even got a rescue dog, a goofy pit mix named Murphy, who now claims my old recliner as his throne. Clara and I talk regularly. She's become a real friend, someone who gets it without needing everything explained. I've reconnected with old friends. People Morgan's family once deemed bad influences. The house feels like mine again. Not perfect, the sink still leaks, and I'm learning to cook for one, but peaceful. Yesterday Morgan came by to pick up the last of her things. She looked better. Said she'd started therapy. She apologized again, not to get me back, but because she meant it. For a second I wondered what could have been if she'd stood up to them sooner. But then that thought passed. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some deserve to stay burned. And the version of me that stood freezing on the porch that night? He's gone. What came after, that's the man I plan to keep.